So now I want to get into who is actually eligible. Now that you kind of understand what the program is, how it works, we'll talk about who is actually eligible to apply for this program. So let me take a drink of water because I've been talking real fast. So first of all, this is a program for South Carolina students. If you live across the border in North Carolina and you send your kid to school in South Carolina, you're not going to be able to use this scholarship. It is only for South Carolina residents. You have to reside in South Carolina. This is also not a college scholarship. So you have to be in kindergarten through 12th grade. You have to turn, for this coming school year, you have to turn 5 by the 1st of September, 2026, to use it for that school year. So it's the same kind of rules for that the state uses for kindergarten eligibility, if you want to send your kid to a public kindergarten. And then it's kindergarten through 12th grade. And they give you a little bit of wiggle room for if your kid maybe has special needs, is held back a couple years. So you can go up to age 22 with the scholarship. But once you hit 22, even if you're still working on high school, you're out of the program. And then subsequently, there are some income limits for the program. If those 500 and 300% numbers mean nothing to you, that's okay. I have a chart. We're going to get to that. But just know that there are income limits for the program. It's 500% of the federal poverty line, but there's priority for those lower income families at 300% of the federal poverty line or below. So here is the promised chart. So the way it works is you can kind of base it off the number of people in your household. So if it is a family of 4, to be at the 300% level, you're going to be here 96,450. If you're at the 500% level, you can't exceed that 160,750. And unfortunately, these are numbers that are set by the federal government every year, the federal poverty line. And there's not a lot of wiggle room of like, if you make $200 over that limit, unfortunately, that you're not eligible. These income limits are based on the federal adjusted gross income. So if you look at your 1040, that's going to be line 11 of your 1040. If you have more household members than 8, add an additional 16,500 for if you're calculating the 300%. If you're calculating the 500%, it's an additional, I think it's 27,000 something. Oh, we have an eligibility quiz. If you were like freaking out about these numbers, breathe. We have a quiz. It'll help you. And if you're expecting a baby to be born during next school year, you can count them toward your household income as well. And then Joshua, I wanted to ask you quickly about non-taxable income that's part of the eligibility calculation and how that works.
Yeah, so if you file taxes, you don't need to worry about that. If you file taxes, then it's just the adjusted gross income from your 1040 line 11. If you don't file taxes, then we have to figure out, okay, where are you getting your income from? You're living somehow. And we'll have to be able to validate all of those other non-taxable income sources.
Yeah, so if you are going to apply and your documentation you're submitting for proof of income is not going to be just your tax returns, there's going to be some other stuff you're going to have to include, whether it's workers' compensation, housing allowance, stuff like that. And veterans payments are not included in that income calculation. I know we had a couple of questions sent in about that, about if VA disability payments are calculated towards that. The answer to that is no. And we'll get a little more. I know someone asked in the chat about which tax year these are based on for the 2026-27 applications, because we are starting those obviously in November and January. Your 2025 taxes are not done yet. We get that. We're not asking you to do your 2025 taxes by January 15th, 2026. That seems crazy. So you can do your 2024 tax returns or your 2023 tax returns, whatever you think best represents your income situation currently. So you are not allowed to receive both ESTF and exceptional SC. That is something that is very explicit in the law. So if you are a child, if you do have a child with special needs and they use the exceptional SC scholarship, you're going to have to make the choice whether you want to use exceptional SC or ESTF. You could apply for both. And then when it comes down to the wire, make the choice and drop out of either ESTF or out of exceptional SC. Additionally, there is a tax credit you can claim in your state income tax where there's a parental refundable tax credit for children with exceptional needs. You cannot do that and ESTF. So thinking about as you're getting ready to file your 2025 taxes, if you're planning to use ESTF, if you've applied for ESTF, don't claim that tax credit. And one thing to know is that this does not affect your scholarships given to you by your school. A lot of schools will have financial aid programs. You'll have to work that out with your specific school. The law does not touch anything with your specific school scholarship or with, there's possibly some new federal school choice programs getting up and running. This doesn't touch the federal program. So just keep that in mind. So there are no requirements for what school your kid attends in order to be eligible to apply. So to apply, you can be going to a public school, a private school, a charter school, any type of school while you're applying. But there are requirements if you're using your scholarship, that year you're using the scholarship, there's rules about what school you can attend and what school you cannot attend. So you cannot attend the public school that you're zoned for. I have this on the next slide, and we'll get into that a little more. But like if my house is zoned for Blue Ridge High School, and my kid goes to Blue Ridge High School, I can't use this. But if you go to a public school that is outside your zone, you can use it. Additionally, the law specifically prohibits homeschooling under options 1, 2, or 3. I know we had a billion questions submitted about homeschooling and education at home. I have a whole slide about that. We're going to talk about it, I promise. But just know that you cannot homeschool under options 1, 2, or 3, the Homeschool Association, SCAES, or through your local school district. But there are options. You're able to attend a private school. You can, if you want to use ESTF to pay tuition at that private school, the private school has to be a nonprofit and not an LLC. So you'll have to talk to your school about that. They can attend a public charter school, they can do an online school, they can do a micro school, or they can do that at-home education option. So a little bit about that transferring between school districts or between public schools. So this is actually, this first one's a real life example. This is what my family did. My childhood home, we're here in Greenville County. We're zoned for Blue Ridge High School. That's where our address is registered for. But my brother attended the Fine Arts Center, and so he went to Wade Hampton High School instead. So he got special permission within Greenville County to transfer to Wade Hampton. And so because he's attending that public school, that is not his zoned public school, you may need to pay extra fees to have a school bus come to your house and pick you up and take you to that school instead of to your zoned school, or there may be extra costs associated with the transfer process. And so ESTF, you're able to use it while you're attending that school so that you can cover some of those costs with transferring between public schools. And it especially comes into play with this scenario here at the bottom where say you live right here, right across the line in Lawrence County, you live in Gray Court, you're zoned for Lawrence High School, but you want to send your kid to Woodmont High School in Southern Greenville County. Maybe it's closer to your house, maybe you like the school better. Maybe it's where mom teaches. There's a lot of different reasons you might want to send your kid to a different public school than the one that you're zoned for. But the problem is when you're transferring across county lines, they love to charge you a big, humongous fee and say, well, you pay property taxes in Lawrence County and not in Greenville County. And so you have to pay the difference that your property taxes would be in Greenville County to send your kid to school in Greenville County. So then they'll charge you a big fat fee. And so ESTF you can use to pay that big fat fee so that you can transfer your kid to a school in a different school district. And I'm using Greenville and Lawrence here. Those are whole counties that are school districts. Obviously, you have counties like Spartanburg where there's like a million little tiny school districts, and maybe 5 miles up the road is a different, Spartanburg District 4 or something like that. So that's kind of how that public school transfer piece works. And then here is how the at-home education piece works. I know this has been something with a lot of questions. So in the law of ESTF that the state legislators passed, it says that parents must agree to not participate in a home instruction program under this section of the code, this section of the code, or this section of the code. And what those sections are options 1, 2, and 3 for homeschooling in South Carolina. This was put in there at the request of a lot of homeschoolers who did not want ESTF to touch homeschooling at all. They wanted to stay separate from ESTF. And so that is the way it is. However, there is something in the law that still allows you to educate at home with ESTF, but you cannot be registered with one of those option 3 homeschool associations or any of those other options. And instead you're registered with the state of South Carolina. You can almost think of the State Department of Education and the ESTF program. That's your accountability group. So instead of submitting your documents to your homeschool association, you'll submit them to the Department of Education because your participation in this program satisfies the state's compulsory attendance law, which is why these homeschool associations exist, is to satisfy compulsory attendance. So what that means is that there is some accountability measures for if you're educating at home with the ESTF. You submit annual testing and you agree to provide certain subjects. And there are transcript management services that help you handle records, transcripts, diplomas, things like that. If this is something you're interested in, I'm not going to take our whole call talking about this because we've done a whole entire webinar about this topic before. If you want to learn more about this, go to scschoolchoice.com and you scroll down on the homepage and there's an article about at-home education with ESTF. There's a whole webinar recording there. It's like an hour long. Watch that webinar, read the article, and then give me a call if you still have questions.